This is Weights and Wealth, your one-stop shop for entertaining education on building a stronger body and bank account.
We are not doctors or financial advisors and must warn you this is not medical or investing advice. It is for your entertainment.
Welcome back to the number one faith, fitness, finance, family, and freedom podcast in the world, Weights and Wealth.
Today's shout out goes to Pat from Chicago for listening and being part of our book club.
Yeah, Pat will send us pictures sometimes on Instagram of him reading the book club books. So it's awesome to see that people are following along with that. And if you've been reading any of the book club books, definitely send us a picture, let us know. We are shifting how the book club works. We used to do one weights and one wealth book per month, but now what we're going to be doing is we'll start releasing earlier on the Instagram the upcoming book club books. You can read it before the episode drops, and then we'll have an entire episode focused on that book club book. So our next one coming up is The Liberty Amendments by Mark Levin. That episode will be coming out on July 8th, around the 4th of July, and we're really excited about that one.
Yeah, we both read it. The book is basically a bunch of proposed amendments that this guy has, and he just kind of explains why and how he thinks it would benefit the country.
Yeah, but we'll get into that more in that episode. The weights wisdom for this week is to meal prep not just for lunches when you're at work, but also for road trips. On the move from Tennessee to DC, I had meal prepped. I just had a thing of sauerkraut and 3 pounds of steak, and that was my meal prep. But it was easy to eat cold while I was driving. So
Sauerkraut's an underrated food.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It goes well with a lot of things, and it tastes good. And it's good for your gut.
Yeah, good for your gut. Really good to get either a probiotic or prebiotic. So foods with fiber or fermented foods with your meals. So I try to get either like berries or sauerkraut right before most of my meals if I can. We've got an intro article today from the Washington Post. This article is, hold on, can we scroll up and get the title? All right. So this article was from March 21st, 2024, and it is titled, "Women are Getting Off Birth Control Amid Misinformation Explosion." We thought this was interesting because we don't really think it's misinformation. It starts off, search for birth control on TikTok or Instagram, and a cascade of misleading videos vilifying hormonal contraception appear. Young women blaming their weight gain on the pill. Right-wing commentators claiming that some birth control can lead to infertility. Testimonials complaining of depression and anxiety. Well, those aren't just testimonials. There's actually research studies that back up how taking birth control pills is correlated with increased rates of anxiety and depression. There's also studies that have come out on oral birth control leading to dissatisfaction in the choice of like a lifelong partner, how it changes how your brain is attracted to faces. So there's a lot of interesting studies that have been coming out on birth control, even linking it to some health problems as you get older, like venous thrombosis. So it's definitely, we did cover this in the episode with Lexi a little bit. Do you know what episode that was? It was an interview we did. Geez, that might have been episode 55, 57, somewhere around there. So if you're interested in that, we had a female personal trainer from the area that we know come on, and we talked a little bit about birth control, a little bit about personal training in general, and some other things. But if you're interested in that, scroll back and find that video with Lexi Grace, or that episode rather. And
I mean, she was on birth control, I think she said, since middle school until she was like 25 or so. And then she documented her experience on Instagram coming off of it, which was really interesting. And kind of what you were saying earlier about, like these side effects, like anytime you put a hormone in your body, like you're likely going to experience side effects. It's not just like this causes this and nothing else. Like usually there's side effects.
But if you say that, apparently, according to the Washington Post, you're vilifying it with with far right conspiracy theories.
Yeah,
they're completely ignoring this article that there is data that backs a lot of these quote unquote theories up. So
yeah, and at the very least, it's good that people are interested in their health and like trying to take more control of it and understand what they're doing to their body from a holistic view.
Yeah.
Rather than just taking someone's word for it.
Yeah. I just thought this article, when I saw it, was hilarious. It's just like such a classic mainstream media spin. Like there's such a bias right off the bat and in the title. Women are getting off birth control amid misinformation explosion. Well, if people are posting studies, is that really misinformation? It's just kind of funny. So
yeah, and very like emotionally charged words like explosion. Yeah. Like that is yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. But we can do, if you guys are interested, we can do an entire episode on the birth control pill.
Yeah, that would be a good one to get Lexi back on for.
Yeah, and just make it a whole episode solely based on that. So if you're interested in that, I guess more of our female audience, we have about, I think last time I looked at the analytics, at least for the combination of Spotify and Apple Music, it looks like we're around like 40 to 45% female audience, which we did not anticipate when we started Weights and Wealth. So our women out there, if you are interested in an episode on that, definitely let us know. Nick, you wanna get us into some realtor news?
Sure. Yeah. So this is so I think a lot of people are upset sort of with just how much money realtors can make. Because, realtors can make a killing. I do tax returns for some realtors and they do very well for themselves. And also there's the lobbying group for realtors that I think it's the National Association of Realtors. I'm pretty sure they are one of the top lobbying groups in the country.
Yeah. Not just for real estate, but like in general, they're one of the top lobbying groups.
Yeah. And when you're lobbying, you're trying to bend the rules into the favor of your, supporters and donors. And in this case, it's realtors. And basically, they got sued and were ordered to pay $418 million to home buyers for inflated commissions. And what they're basically doing is I can't think of the word. It's not a monopoly, but they're colluding with each other essentially to price fix. And that's not a free market, and that's not something that's good for the economy. So I guess like our main talking point for this part is, do you think that realtors deserve what they make?
Yeah, it's tough because there's a lot of different aspects of this. If you look at how much the average realtor makes, the numbers are really skewed because there are so many realtors out there that do it as like almost more of a part-time kind of a gig, or people that get their real estate license to buy their own house. So that winds up skewing the numbers quite a bit because there are a lot of realtors out there that aren't making millions of dollars every year. And when
vast majority are.
Yeah, and when you start getting into more like multifamily commercial, that's obviously going to skew the numbers as well because they're much larger purchase prices. But I do think that the job of a realtor has shifted a lot over the course of the last 10 years. So I think these commissions made sense before, but like if you look at now, like I had a good realtor, I liked him, but we were still doing a lot of the legwork, like going on Zillow and finding the houses we wanted to look at. So, and a lot of people do all that work themselves. They go on Zillow, find all the houses, the realtor just sets up the showings and then helps with like the contract at the end. So I do think realtors probably don't do as much as they used to for the home buying process. That said, you definitely still want a realtor, so you're not not making a really bad purchase. But I do think their job has changed a little bit. So it would make sense if the commissions came down, and making them negotiable now is interesting. But I don't know enough about like realtors and I guess real estate to know if this shift is going to be good or bad. I can't really say.
Yeah, I mean there are really good realtors out there, and those are the ones who are doing all the legwork, and they're the ones making the most money because they're selling these huge houses and they're doing all the legwork for that. Me also, I wouldn't mind paying a realtor a decent amount of money if they can, get me a higher price for my house or something like that. Also, to the people that say that realtors make too much money and that it's not that hard of a job, there's nothing stopping you from going out and becoming a realtor. Like, just do it. Which, I mean, that's part of the reason why I think they get paid so much, is because there's high risk involved with being a realtor, because you're not guaranteed income. And your income fluctuates a lot based on market conditions that you have no control over.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you can say it's unfair, but most people want the continuous drug injected of a 9-to-5 W-2 where they're getting paid the same amount. Any kind of job that's commission based, where you're really taking a risk and your income is going to fluctuate based off your performance, that's taking a risk, and a lot of times it's going to be rewarded.
Right. And also, I don't know if being able to negotiate the commission is new. I just think most people just don't know that they can do it.
Well, I thought they were coming out with legislation maybe that was going to change.
I did read that, but I listen to My First Million sometimes. It's a podcast. These two Silicon Valley guys just talk about what's going on there. And one of them was talking about selling his house, and he was saying that he negotiated with his realtor essentially an incentive fee. So, like, for example, say he wanted $1 million for his house. He was like, I'll pay you nothing if you sell it for $1 million or less. But if you sell it for, over $1 million, I'll give you 10% of everything over $1 million. Like, you can negotiate these kind of things. Like, it's especially with someone who's on their own, like, everything, you can negotiate pretty much anything. So I think there should be more of that. I don't think most people will do that. They just kind of take the price and just accept it. But
can we start negotiating income tax with the IRS? Is that an option?
We can try. We can try our best. I don't think it'll work, but you could sure try.
Speaking of the government and the IRS, we have an interesting episode today. We're going to be talking about politicians and their trading schemes. So we've got a chart here from Unusual Whales. And basically it goes through the 2023 returns that politicians got and how they compare to the SPY. So we always recommend that you watch Weights and Wealth if you're interested in the graphs that we put up. So I'm not going to read everything on here for the listeners. We recommend hitting up YouTube or Spotify for the video. But I'll read off a couple of the numbers here. So when you look at the year-to-date returns for 2023, Brian Higgins was the big winner. Democrat, he had, let's see, this is 238.9% return on stocks. That is, I mean,
that's wild.
That's like 20 times better than Warren Buffett. So Brian Higgins, clearly a stock trading genius. And then you got three Republicans: Mark Green, 122.2%. Garrett Graves, 107.6%. David Reuser, 105.6%. Then you got some Democrats, some of the more well-known traders, prolific traders we've got here. You got Richard Blumenthal, Democrat, 68.1%. Nancy Pelosi, Democrat, 65.5%. Susan Collins, I think some people know. I think she's Maine, 55.5%. Let's see, any other well-known ones on
Crenshaw
here?
Crenshaw was on there. I don't know if he's...
Yeah, Crenshaw is usually up here. He's not, looks like 2023. He didn't do as well. Tommy Tuberville, 17% Republican. Mitch McConnell, Marjorie Taylor Greene, 18.1, 18.6%. So some of those are, there's Dan Crenshaw, 38.2% Republican, Texas. So the SPY in 2023 was 24.8%. Yeah. So even some of these more well-known ones like Mitch McConnell, Tommy Tuberville, they aren't beating the SPY in 2023. But that could have been a down year for them.
Yeah. And if people really want us to evaluate this data, we can. We would just want some interest in it, because we can get where all of this data comes from and really evaluate. Because who knows, maybe Brian Higgins, he's investing in startups and stuff like that. like this might not all just be stock market. And that type of return in 1 year wouldn't be uncommon if you're investing in, if like you're doing venture capital. I'm thinking most of this, or maybe not most, but at least a good chunk of it is from knowing legislation that's going to pass before it does.
Yeah, if you know that the government's going to incentivize with a bill that's coming out, going to incentivize NVIDIA to make more chips,
Right.
and then NVIDIA explodes. This is like Nancy Pelosi came out for this one in the news, or I guess the news exposed her on this one. I'm not sure how much they made on that. But again, we can get all these stats on their returns. It's just going to cost us a little bit of money. So if you are really interested in that, definitely let us know so we can do that. But we don't want to spend the money on that if there's not really a big interest on getting that data. But it is pretty crazy that so many of these, I mean, let's see, just between a 40% return up to I guess we'll leave out those outliers above 100%. There's 4 of them, 3 Republicans and 1 Democrat. But the rest here from 40 to 80%, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like you got like 20 members of Congress there that are their portfolios are up between 40 and 80%. And I mean, that is really not a normal return. Again, SPY was 24.8%. So we are going to we're not going to focus too much on solutions during this episode, because in the Liberty Amendments episode, we mentioned the book club episode coming out on July 8th. We are going to propose amendments to the Constitution that will actually be solutions to this problem. But we just wanted to talk more about the ethics of it and make sure everyone knows what's going on, and then also present some strategies you can use to get these cheat codes they're using.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that's like, I don't know why they aren't limited in what they can buy and sell, because in the accounting field, auditors who are auditing a company are not allowed to have any financial affiliation with that company. Like,
it's somehow legal insider trading.
Right. Yeah. And auditors, even like if you have bank accounts with a bank over a certain amount, or, outstanding credit card debt, like you aren't allowed to have that. Like it's so far beyond just stock trading, which, I mean, I think that's a good thing to have. But I think that same like logic should apply to our politicians as well. Yeah.
And a lot of times these returns that they're getting, a lot of these members of Congress are on certain committees. So there was one the other day. I should have written down his name. I can't remember his name. But basically he was on like the Forestry and Agriculture Committee. And then I think he's from like Oklahoma or something. And then he introduced legislation that Oklahoma was going to redo all of their water meters to like a new, smarter, more upgraded water meter. But right before that bill was introduced, he bought like 40 million of the company with those water meters that are going to be used to replace all the water meters in at least like Oklahoma City, but maybe all of Oklahoma. So like it's this kind of stuff where that's like a clear insider trading kind of thing. And a lot of these members of Congress are on these committees where they're helping within that committee draft legislation for a certain something. And then they know the companies that are directly going to profit from that legislation. And they're able to make these trades before the legislation comes out.
Right. And one of the amendments I have is specifically, or like I wrote it mainly to prevent stuff like that from happening. It has nothing to do with senators and members of the House from buying, or it has nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with them not buying stocks, but one of my amendments does try to eliminate that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, do you have anything else?
We're gonna go more into the solutions again in that Liberty Amendments app, but one of the ways that you can get in on this is there's some social media accounts. We got this chart from one of them. So this chart is from Unusual Whales, and three of the big accounts that I know of on Instagram and Twitter that track all this stuff and alert you when a politician makes a trade. It's usually 45 days late because they need to wait for their statements. But you've got Unusual Whales, Quiver Quantitative, and Politician Trade Tracker. And there might be more out there, but these are the big three that really track these politicians' trades and let you know. So we always recommend, even though it's not advice, it's just entertainment here on Weights and Wealth. But our strategies that we would advise most people to do, again, entertainment, not advice.
That we hypothetically would advise.
Hypothetically advise, there we go. Is to buy and hold long-term index funds and not try to cherry pick stocks. However, like I have my 401k and then I've got my IRA and then I have an individual brokerage. And then part of that individual brokerage, I do cherry pick stocks. But what I do, aside from like Home Depot and some other just main stocks I believe in and that I like, Home Depot is where I shop. So, but aside from that, I also will sometimes buy the stocks that the politicians like Pelosi are buying. So there was specifically some sort of company in San Diego that was Pelosi bought because it was going to be used for intelligence and data. And when she bought that, I bought a little bit of it, just like 1 or 2 shares. Because if they're getting these incredible returns, if they know NVIDIA is going to explode, then they get a 200% return on it. Who wouldn't want to get in on that? And going down that road, the Politician Trade Tracker account has this app called Autopilot. Nick, you want to get into what Weights and Wealth might be doing if the people want it?
Yeah, so Weights and Wealth might allocate some of our funds to this Autopilot, and it'll basically just track how the politicians are trading. And it does it for you automatically. It makes all the trades for you. So we won't really have to do much. We'll just have to put a little bit of money into it. And we can track those returns, basically. And I think that would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, so definitely comment below. If you're comment on the Instagram, if you're seeing this as a clip, comment below. If you're watching it real time, hit us up on Instagram or through our email and let us know if you're interested in this. And based off how much interest we get, we'll allocate more funds towards it. And then we'll just track this over time. We'll continue to give you guys updates on how it's doing. The app charges like a monthly or a yearly fee. But we think it would be just good content for you guys if we can track this over time and see how it's doing. And it allows you to invest either in certain politicians like Pelosi or Crenshaw's portfolios or just Congress in general, but you just connect your brokerage account to it and it makes all the trades for you. So that's why it's called Autopilot.
Yeah. And if you guys are interested in doing like a deeper dive into the data, please let us know. I might just pay for it myself regardless because I'm interested. But like we could figure out what they're investing in, like what types of investments, whether it be stocks, hedge funds, venture capital, stuff like that. And then we can also figure out whether they're day trading, swing trading, doing long-term investing, we could figure out all that kind of stuff. And then also figure out if their returns are statistically significant enough or that like a standard deviation that they are far away enough from the mean to the point where we can say that if you're in Congress, you're likely to have higher returns. So I think that would be really interesting, but please definitely reach out if you are interested in that.
Yeah, so if you didn't know about this, now you know. Members of Congress are getting insanely rich despite their salary being, it depends on what their position is, but if you're making $175,000 a year and your net worth when you go into Congress is $1 million, and then 8 years later your net worth is $120 million, that doesn't really line up.
Nope, it does not.
So definitely let us know what you want us to do as far as the Autopilot and really buying that data and combing through it. And we'll give you more in future episodes based off what the feedback is here.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you next week. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us today at Weights and Wealth, and don't forget to apply today's lessons to live healthy and wealthy.
If this conversation will contribute to your fitness and financial gains, please share it with a friend or family member and give a 5-star review so more people can lift bigger weights and get bigger bank accounts.